Today's guest is a writer, mom of three, and professional truth teller, Conz Preti. You've seen her on at Conz, making you smile, cry, and question everything you thought you knew about motherhood in the best way possible. From grief to identity to the wild chaos of raising tiny humans, Conz is bringing that kind of raw honesty that we need these days online.
We read the books, we bought the things. We thought we were ready. And then life took our plans and changed them. I'm Karen, I'm Victoria's mommy, and I work in tech.
And I'm Pamela. I have a baby boy named Ford, and I'm a journalist. And although we're both first-time working moms, we're actually pretty different.
And that's totally okay. Because we both agree that our most important work is raising our kids. We really need each other and can only get through this together. Welcome to Motherish Moments.
Hey, hey.
Welcome to Motherish. I'm so excited to be with Karen.
Yes.
I hate that during the summer it became the norm to not be together. So we're going through this like rekindling season, which I love.
Yeah. Do you like my full brown look?
I've been touching you. It's like
Very
butter
full brown.
all morning.
I know. These, whatever. It's the only good thing that came out of TikTok.
Guys, if you're listening, it's worth going to YouTube just to see Karen's leggings. Okay, I'm just
My
telling
fit.
you. Yes.
My fit.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm excited for today's guest. I've known her for a very long time through digital life and in person, but more so connected digitally through social media and stuff and professionally. So she has a really, really interesting story and just the evolution of watching her from like single girl in Brooklyn to like family life has been really cool. But anyway, it should be a great conversation. But before we get into that, you want to do your motherish moment? I'm ready for mine. It's
Go,
light.
do it.
Okay, so I've been taking advantage of like schoolless mornings and just a little bit of a week that I have with Victoria before school. And the other day we woke up and we had made breakfast and I was like, "Do you want to watch Shrek?" And she's like, "Who?" And I was like, let's go. So we watched Shrek and I hadn't seen it in obviously like it's not like I watch this regularly, but I hadn't seen it in like years. And I remember I got a little bit nostalgic because I went to the movies to see Shrek when Shrek first came out. And I took my brother because he was like 4 or 5 years old. We used to go to the movies all the time. I would always take him to the movies. And so I was watching it and I was texting him and he was like, "I love Shrek so much. I remember." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then like watching it with my kid, she got so into it that then she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I wonder what happened with this and that." And I was like, "There's 5 movies total."
Is there 5?
My brother said there's 5.
Yeah, I think I stopped at like 2 probably.
I never watched, but anyway, later that afternoon she watched Shrek 2. So now it's like, let's go to Universal. Like, let's go see Shrek in person. I don't know. I was like, I don't know if he's there. But it was fun. It was a really fun full circle moment going from like what I like to refer as like my first kind of like light touch point with motherhood with my brother to then experiencing this with my daughter and then like talking with my brother about my daughter. It was great.
Actually, that reminds me, before I do my mother's moment, Lilo and Stitch was like kind of that for my sister. She loved the cartoon version, the whole Ohana thing, the family thing. And then she took Ford to go watch it.
Aww.
And it was so cute. Even though she was like, "Well, that's not what happened in the original one."
Yeah,
But,
my brother was pissed about that too. I think they're the same age.
It was cute. Yeah, I think so. My mother's moment actually is similar to yours. I've been enjoying the mornings with Ford. I usually go in late at work, so I usually have them technically off, but not with Ford. But it's been nice incorporating him into my routine, and it's been so sweet. So the other day we went to see Bad Guys 2, like at 11 in the morning. And I'd just taken him to the doctor and he had been done so good and was so brave. So at the end of the doctors, I said, "Listen, after the movies, I'm going to take you to buy a toy because you were great, and you get to pick any of the dinosaurs you want, dinosaur number 522 or whatever it is." But I also told him, and also we're going to buy an extra toy and we're going to give it to a kid that doesn't have any toys or needs it, and we'll think about who we could give that to. He was like, "I like that idea." I'm like, "Okay." So we get to the store. He picks, he takes a really long time picking out which dinosaur because he has to figure out which one he doesn't have, which one he's missing. He like really analyzes his choices. So he finally chooses one that has in one box a car, a dino, the person from the movie with like the tool he used to catch the dinosaur. It was like a complete package. And it
It's
was
like Jurassic
third.
Park or something?
Yeah, it's Jurassic
Okay.
Park.
I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
any other dinosaur movie.
Yes, Jurassic Park. Yeah, he's super into Jurassic Park. So the toy was like $38. So I kind of like ditched the extra toy idea. So I was like, whatever. I forgot. I pretend, whatever. We rush. We got some
Savage.
things. He gets in the car. He's like, hey, mom, like, you said you were going to buy an extra toy for a needy child and you didn't. Did you forget?
Damn, get called out.
And I was like, you know what, right? You're right, baby. Tomorrow we'll go back. So we went back the next day. We picked up a toy and it's in my car. So we haven't chosen who we're going to give it to, but I'm trying to like teach him, you know, the giving effort, the gift of giving. But, you know, I had to. It
Follow
was funny.
through.
I
You gotta
know,
follow
because I
through
was
with
like,
what you say.
yeah.
All right, Conz, do you want to jump in with your motherish
this is for
moment?
guests.
And then
Hi,
we'll do
Conz.
an intro.
Hi, I'm so excited. I'm such a fan of both of you ladies, so I'm very happy to be here. My motherish moment is that my three kids are very, very shy and very timid. My husband and I are not, and whenever we go to like a birthday party, they hide behind us, and I'm like, go talk to kids, like we're here for you. But this week, the twins went to skateboarding camp. They chose to go to skateboarding
So
camp.
you have one boy and then the twin girls, right?
And twin girls, yeah. And Ozzy is the oldest, he's 7, and the twins are 5, Luna and Ruby. So Luna and Ruby went to skateboarding camp. It was their choice, and they were so courageous, and they learned how to skate. And not only that, but they, by themselves, went and made friends and connected me with the mom. So I was like, okay, progress. And then that same day, Ozzy came back, and he was like, I want to play date with this boy that I met at my sports camp. And I'm like, they're talking.
Okay.
They're talking without me. So I feel like they're starting to find sort of courage to make friends by themselves. Up until this point, they've always been like school friends or like the kids of my friends. But now I see them, and I'm so proud of them, connect with people or little kids that they're really interested.
That's a big
I
deal.
am
What are the
excited.
ages again?
7, 5, and 5.
Girl.
Yeah.
I saw her this summer at a baseball game, or it was a spring break, I think. And I'm looking at her, they're passing along chicken tenders and fries. Like, it's a whole thing. Her and her husband are an incredible team. And I was like, man, that's a full house. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. But it's so wild because, okay, so brief kind of overview here, at least from what I recall. So when I first started following Conz and I started kind of like, watching her life, Conz was single. And I want to say that you weren't like, it wasn't like you were like, I'm dying to get married and have kids. You were actually like on the other side of that. And she meets this guy. They fall in love. They have 3 weddings, right?
Yeah.
3 weddings. They have 3 weddings. And then they have their first child. And then I think the rest of it is your story to tell of everything that happened after that. But like, it's so amazing to see like the massive pivot and how like when you're younger, you can say, even when you're older, at any age, you can say whatever you want. But life is like, no.
Yeah.
This is what's in store for you.
By the way, this morning, before we introduced our guest formally, I was watching an episode of Bluey, who, of course, always manages to like
Ruin
give me
us.
a huge life lesson. And Bluey, as the mom, he's like, oh, am I going to have kids when I grow up? And the mom tells him, well, if you want to, if like, am I going to be a mom? It was like a very elaborate, heavy question for a cartoon. And then Ford looked at me, he goes, Mom, am I going to be a dad when I grow up? And I was like,
You're crying.
I didn't know, to be honest, I didn't know what to say. And I was like in such a rush to like get ready and head out the door. And I was like, I kind of like avoided the question and I kind of just went back. And then I kept thinking when I was driving, I should have addressed that. But it's true, you never know like what you think you or visualize yourself. And then in that episode, Bluey comes back as a grown-up.
What?
I remember I come back.
What?
I need to go back. Yes, I need to go back and watch the episode to kind of like unpack it. But it's crazy how sometimes what you envision for yourself at a younger stage completely, shifts as an adult. So like we mentioned, Conz is a writer and she's writing for, these very important outlets, mother of 3, a boy and twins. But I want you to share, how would you describe yourself? Who are you, Conz? It's a very loaded question. If you could give us like your bio.
That is a hard question. I don't know. I feel like I am someone who is always trying to learn and understand more, whatever that is, whether it's in, with my kids, with my life, with my job, with myself. I can't stay still. I cannot stay still. I think it's because I'm a Gemini, but also just I'm very curious. I want to know everything. I want to understand everything. And at the same time, I have like a million hobbies that I haven't finished. I also feel like I am very connected to my inner child. So even though I said I didn't want to get married and I didn't want to have kids, and I'm an only child, and that was really hard for my parents to hear because they were like, we wanted to have more children and we couldn't. We only had you, and now you're not going to give us grandchildren. And they were very disappointed. Obviously, that changed, and I can get more into that later. But I feel like I'm not necessarily a good parent in terms of like giving advice and helping you through the, hardships of like growing up. I am the parent that is like, I was just making glitter mandalas with my twins, and we're all covered in glitter head to toe. And my husband was like, "What?" And I was like, "We're just having fun." Like I am kind of like an extra kid in the house. So like I'm very curious and I'm very childish, I guess.
Well, that's definitely, I'm sure, your creative side from being a writer. Do you miss at all the structure? For example, I'm a journalist and there's definitely a big creative part of us, but I do like and I thrive in structure, like the deadlines, the times, do you miss a little bit of that when you kind of break the cycle of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've always joked in multiple stages in my career. I've tried like freelancing or starting my own thing. And I'm like, no, I need someone telling me what I need to do and when I need to do it. Because if not, one week I'm like super productive and the next nothing gets done. And I can see that with laundry. Like if one week I'm like, I'm having so much fun doing other things, then, the laundry piles up. Like I need so much structure because I can go into so many places. I'm currently on medical leave, and I decided to start a project of cleaning out my kids' closets to like have the right sizes for all of their outfits. And my husband had to give me a deadline. Otherwise, their closets would still be on the floor, right? Like I do need that structure because if not, I just can go so many ways.
So let's talk about your first pregnancy. So you had take us through your journey of children.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I didn't want kids, and then I met my now husband, and he is so good with children. He would be that person that like all my friends weren't married, didn't have kids. All of his friends were married and had kids, and we would go to their houses, and he would be like playing with all of them. And the moment he walked in, they would all jump on top of him, and I was like, okay, maybe with
You're
you,
like,
because
my
you're so good at this.
You're having a reaction.
But I'm like, maybe with you. So anyway, I got accidentally pregnant. We weren't trying. I actually got pregnant the morning of our final wedding. We had 3 weddings. I'm from Argentina. He's from Maine. So we wanted to ensure that all of our family members and friends could attend to our weddings. My family couldn't get their stuff together to come to the US. His family couldn't go to Argentina for the reason. So I was like, you know what? Let's just have multiple weddings. So I got pregnant with Ozzy on the morning of the last wedding. And we went on our honeymoon, and I was drinking alcohol, and I was not taking care of myself because I didn't even consider the thought of being pregnant. And I had a dream when we were there. My mother-in-law was very sick. We knew that, she was dying. And I had a dream when I was in our honeymoon that I told her, you need to keep a secret. I'm pregnant. And I woke up sobbing because I was like, this is so unfair. I'm never going to be able to tell her this. Why am I having this dream in my, honeymoon? My husband was like, why are you sad? I was like, no, forget it. I didn't tell him about it. And then when we arrived in New York, he had to rush to go see her because she was in the hospital and she wasn't doing well. And I was like, I'm going to take a pregnancy test because this dream keeps playing in my head. And I just want to see the negative and move forward. And I peed on that stick and it was immediately positive. And I was like, what is happening? Like what? And I couldn't tell. I didn't want to tell my husband over the phone. I didn't tell my parents. I was like, what do I do with this secret now? So I was able to tell my mother-in-law that I was pregnant. So that is, at least she knew. And I had a pretty standard, uneventful pregnancy. It was like so easy up until he was born. He was breech, and they were going to try to manually turn him, do an ECV, EBC, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were going to manually turn him around so he could be head down. I wasn't thinking that he was going to be born that day. There were no signs that he was in distress. I was like, great, let's do it. And when I got to the hospital, my midwife was like, no, you're having a baby today. He was 37 weeks, so it wasn't like an emergency, but to me, it felt like it because I was,
Mentally
as a
not
first-time
ready.
mom, right, I wasn't ready. I was like, babies are born on the 40th week, and this is his due date. And he, like I was just so focused on that I couldn't fathom him being 3 weeks early. We didn't have, our bags in the hospital. We didn't have anything. He was born. He was healthy via C-section. But I really struggled at the beginning because I think I was in shock that he was early or he came whenever he wanted. I was in shock that I had a C-section because I also didn't think that was even a possibility. I don't know why, obviously naively as a first-time mom. And I really struggled at the beginning to bond with him. He had latch issues, so he wasn't gaining weight. And I felt like I was the only person going through all of these struggles. Like no one else understood me. No one else in the world had ever gone through this. These were, and I started sharing what I was going through on Instagram to see if there was anyone else out there who felt the same. And to my surprise, a lot of women go
Everyone's like,
through the same struggle, right?
The floodgates opened.
The same struggles. And I was like, oh, I'm not alone. And maybe in my sharing this, I'm helping someone else who is feeling alone, who's feeling isolated, who's struggling to breastfeed, who's struggling to sleep, whatever it is, to be like, okay, I'm fine. This is just a phase. It's going to get better. Or it's not fine. I should, go talk to the doctor or, whatever it is. And I kind of pivoted my career into parenting after that because I was like, okay, you know what? I've worked in media for however many years up until now. And we're not getting, especially moms, we're not telling the stories the way they are. We're not actually helping moms. So that's why I kind of like pivoted my career into parenting. And then after Ozzy was like 6 months old, I was like, okay, this is fun. He's a person, he can sit up, he can tell me what he likes. We can like go back and forth. He's not, I call it, I call newborns the potato stage because like they kind of don't do anything.
My sister's always like, I hate when people send me a picture of like a newborn. They're like, oh, is he cute? Is he like, I don't know. He looks like a potato to me. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
My sister's like, so funny.
So yeah, once he was off of that potato stage, I was like, okay, this can be fun. We can have fun. And, I went back to work. Going back to work, it was such a part of my identity that even though I had a very generous maternity leave the first time around, I had 6 months and it was great. And I really needed that time. At the same time, I was really looking forward to being myself in a professional setting, not just mom. And so I remember turning around to my husband and being like, I could do this again. And he was like, what? He thinking, when we first met, I said I didn't want kids. And then I struggled after giving birth and as a first-time mom. And he was like, I was sure that Ozzy was going to be an only child. And I was completely fine with that. So we decided to try pretty soon. I think I got pregnant again when Ozzy was 9 months old, which now looking back seems insane because he was such a baby still. And I got pregnant again on the first try. But then that pregnancy ended on a miscarriage. And it was a miscarriage. There were no signs. There were no symptoms. I had no idea what had happened. And I needed to get a D&C. And again, I felt so alone. I was like, why is this happening to me? And when I started to share my story again, I realized that so many of my friends, not just people on the internet, friends, close friends, people that I saw like every week, had also gone through miscarriages. And I was like, why are we not helping each other out? Why are we not being more open about this? And I think that after losing that pregnancy, I I became determined into getting pregnant. I was like, now I really want another kid. Now that I lost that pregnancy, I want another child. And we tried and were unsuccessful for a while. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make peace with it. I'm an only child. If Ozzy's an only child, he'll be fine. I'm fine. I think I'm a pretty cool person, so he's going to be great. And then, of course, that month is when I got pregnant, and it was twins.
How fun.
And
Blessing.
yes, now, but
Pamela's life goal.
yes, now, but in the moment, in that first ultrasound, I was like, I just wanted easy. I just wanted a repeat, I just wanted one baby. Right, because I know what to do with one. Now you're giving me two. Like, I didn't want to level up. I wanted the same level. I want to play again the same level. And I was in absolute denial. I was like, I remember they were doing the ultrasound and they call in the doctor, and I was like, oh, here we go, more bad news. And my husband is trying to keep a straight face because he can see the screen. And the doctor is like, well, it looks like twins. And I was like, what? And my husband starts just like laughing out loud. And I was like, this is not a laugh moment. This is like, what are we going to do? But it was, I mean, being able to see like the twin magic, first row is pretty amazing. Yeah. But I was in shock and in denial.
How was your postpartum with the twins compared to your postpartum with Ozzy?
So interestingly, again, the pregnancy with the twins, despite being a twin pregnancy, was pretty uneventful. The second time around, because I struggled so much post-birth, I didn't care how they were born. I didn't care how they were going to be fed. All I wanted was to focus on support for me after.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So they were born first week of March 2020. And we had
we just recorded an episode about how the pandemic babies are going into kindergarten this year.
Yeah.
And like, my God, it's wild. Yeah.
It's wild. So we had like, a nanny for Ozzy, so he was taken care of. And then I had a night nurse for the girls. I think we had done something like a week to see how I felt, because I knew I was going to have a C-section, to be able to sleep properly that first week, because I was going to be, feeding two babies and all of that. And I think we got like 3 days of that, and then the world shut down. And then it was just the 5 of us in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn with our 2 dogs. And despite all of that, it still was easier than the first time around, because I knew what to expect, because my expectations were as low as they could be. I was like, if I don't shower today, nothing's going to happen. Like no one's going to see me anyway. I kind of, for us at least, the pandemic really helped us in the sense that like we didn't have FOMO. We didn't have anywhere to go. It didn't matter if I was wearing pajamas all day. And that really helped me with my postpartum. But I also think just knowing that everything's a phase, that eventually you will sleep again, that, what a hungry baby looks like, what a poopy diaper looks like, all the unknowns the first time around, I was more confident as a mom. So despite the fact that we had no help, it was in the middle of a pandemic, and it was 2 babies, it still felt easier than the first time around, which says a lot about how hard it is to become a first-time mom.
And also the expectations that we build. We talk a lot about that on Motherish in terms of like what we expected, what we visualize, and then what reality is, and then coming to peace with, okay, and again, I had similar, my baby came early, I was a C-section, I also had a pandemic baby, but it's like I visualized all this, and then, but once I came to peace with like, you know what, it happened in a different way, it was fine, then it was a lot healthier for me. But for a very long time, we're so hard on ourselves because of that expectation that we build, and when it doesn't happen that way, then we're like so disappointed, right? So it's hard.
And I love social media because I can share my life journey, and like I said, like if I can help someone, or even if I can find someone that can help me. But at the same time, I to your point, Pamela, like the expectation, like seeing other people have what we think is like their life together while we don't, like I remember with Ozzy, I was in like the March 2018 like Reddit baby group, and everyone seemed to have down. And I was
God,
like,
those
I
things.
don't, what am I doing? You know, like, and I was comparing myself to strangers for
Mm.
for what purpose, you
I
know?
was
So I
in
think,
some weird April 2019 baby thing. I don't even know how I got pulled into that. But by the way, I would never do that again. I would never want to be part of something like that because if, well, for my personality, no, I
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Um,
And, you know, again, like little things like baby milestones. I remember being so focused with Ozzy, like when you're going to sit up, when you're going to crawl, when you're going to walk. And with the twins, I was like, we're good. Like if there's
Right.
anything like really bad that we need to address, the pediatrician's going to tell me. I don't need to be like staring at you trying to crawl for like 5 hours a day. You're good. And they did it whenever whenever they were ready, you
Yeah.
know?
But it's so hard also to want to tell a first time mom, hey, relax, hey, don't worry,
Can't.
because they need to live through it. They need to, they build their own set of expectations, their own dreams of how what motherhood is going to look like. And I've learned that I just had to stand back
You're like, okay,
and
pumpkin,
yes,
you do
let
you.
them live it through it because some people don't appreciate like the feedback
Oh,
or
I
the
was very
not
defensive.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I was very defensive. So let's talk about your health right now and what you are going through.
Yeah, so I said I'm on medical leave because I had a hysterectomy 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
Again, you know, sharing my story because apparently it's there in the U.S. 600,000 women get hysterectomies every year, and at the same time, I'm like, wait, I
Wow.
don't know anyone who got one, right? Like, and then in telling my story, I found out that my aunt got one when she was 37. But when I was pregnant with Ozzy, they did the first ultrasound, and they were like, "Did you know that you have fibroids?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "It's fine, no big deal." Most people find out when they're pregnant for their first time because they usually don't cause any symptoms. Like if they do cause symptoms, then you know. But in my case, my periods weren't heavy. I wasn't experiencing any pain. I was one of those people who had like 3-day periods, and I was so happy about that. Completely manageable. Then during the C-section, my midwife was like, "Oh my God, they're so big." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Your fibers are so big." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "But they usually don't create complications. It's fine." After the twins were born, I didn't have a period for, I think, a year from breastfeeding and postpartum and whatever. And then when it came back, it came with like full revenge. Like that 3-day period was no longer. Now we're talking about like weeks long period.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, maybe it's because I had twins. Maybe it's because I breastfed for longer. I don't know, but whatever. It never went back to normal. And it increasingly got worse. And I kept telling my doctor, this is not normal. I can't contain it. Like when I'm on my period, I actually don't want to leave the house because I'm afraid that I'm going to stain my pants. There was one situation where I went thrifting by myself and put on a night pad before I left the house. So like one of those like essentially diapers, and the store was like 5 minutes away. I got in and I was bleeding. Like it was dripping down my legs. And my doctor was like, no, this is fine. You're perimenopause. Maybe it's just like one of your last periods. And she kept
Ay, Dios,
downplaying it.
perimenopause.
I know.
Here
And
we are.
I like demanded to find another doctor that would listen to me because I was like, this is not normal. Like I was incredibly anemic because of it, which meant I had no energy to play with my kids. I was falling asleep. Like we came back from a birthday party and I fell asleep in the car and they left me in the car for like 3 hours taking a nap, like sitting up, like at the most uncomfortable. I was like, this is not normal. So eventually I saw a doctor that finally listened to me and she was like, your fibroids are actually so out of control.
Wow.
They're squashing your uterus. And this is not going to get better until you go into menopause. Like the reason why fibroids grow are hormones. And because your ovaries are still working, they're going to keep growing and you're going to continue having all of these side effects. She was like, there's two options. Either I put you on menopause at, 41 or you have a hysterectomy. And at first I panicked. I was like, I'm too young for this. We were still debating whether to have another kid, but like very lightly, kind of like not actually, but more of like, we didn't want to put like a full stop, right? We wasn't like never, ever again. And I was like, I feel like I'm too young to be going through this. And I had a second opinion. I talked to a doctor in Argentina because I felt more comfortable maybe talking to someone abroad, not, because of my experience with that doctor that kind of didn't listen to me. I was like skeptical about the US health system. And he was like, no, those are your two options. This is actually pretty common. This is how you treat fibroids. You should get a hysterectomy. So I had my uterus removed, my cervix, my fallopian tubes, and I felt significantly better almost immediately.
Wow.
Yes, I'm still recovering from major surgery. Yes, they did remove an entire organ, but I didn't realize how much my uterus was just ruining my life, essentially. Like, I'm not anemic anymore. I'm not in constant like pelvic and abdominal pain because everything was squished. And I started losing weight out of the blue. I was like, oh, okay. Like my hormones have left. Like everything is like back to where it should be.
And also, it's important when you mention your kids, right? Because I think when you're a mom, your priority is to be healthy for them, to have energy to
Right.
play with them, to feel good, to spend time with them. So I think that totally shifts your mind when it comes to like decisions that you make about your body, about health. It really revolves around them. So my mother had it done when she was 32, right after giving birth to my sister.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. After she gave birth to my sister, her fibroid was so big, and she was like, you know what? I'm done. I have you. 10 years later, she had my sister. And that was actually a C-section. And she had natural birth with my sister 10 years later. And a few months after she gave birth to my sister, she went back and she had it done. And I didn't realize until later on, until I was an adult, that I was like, you're right, you did have that procedure. You haven't had an ovary or fallopian tubes or anything since you were 32 years old, which is so young. But she was like, you know what? I knew I didn't want any more kids. And I was so focused. I had just had a newborn. I had you, that was 10. I was like, whatever it is to make me healthy and focus on my children, that's what I want. That was her priority back then.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of like why I was pushing to find an answer, because I was like, I can't be like hemorrhaging every month and in bed for a week because I'm not present for my kids. I don't want to leave the house. And also like being a mom to two girls, I didn't want them to think that periods were these like horrible thing, because they are going to get it and they are going to have it for a really long time of their life. And I also wanted not to like, I don't know, feel afraid of it, because mine was so out of the ordinary. It's not like the common experience of getting your period, that I also didn't want them to see that every single month. And I was just miserable. I was just miserable generally. Yeah.
What about the emotional? Is there what psychologically? What do you go through in the? So obviously you feel better physically, and that's fantastic. Is there a psychological, emotional element to this?
I mean, obviously, from my perspective, it's going to be different because we already had 3 kids. We had already said, even though we were like, maybe one more, ha ha ha, if it happens. But like, we were kind of, we both knew that we were done. 3 kids is a lot of kids. So it was an easier decision in that sense. But I have to admit that like when I left the doctor's office, I was in tears because I was like, what do you mean you're taking away my uterus? I feel like people who, women who are like people who have been brought up as women, like we have such an attachment to like fertility meaning beauty. Like if you are able to carry kids, then you're desirable. And which is so dumb and old school, and like, why do we still think that I literally turned to my husband and said, are you going to find me attractive if I don't have a uterus anymore? He was like, what are you talking about? He's like, of course I am. But in my head, I was stuck to that. Like, I am not feminine enough. I am not pretty enough because I can't carry a pregnancy anymore, which even though I am completely against that, I was having those thoughts. It's so messed up. Now looking back, after having it done, I don't feel like that anymore. I think it was just more of like the fear of going into it. But then once it happened, because I felt so much better physically, I was like, well, those were just dumb ideas, whatever. But yeah, that was like the first thought I had. I was like, is my husband still going to be attracted to me?
That's wild. Yeah. That's wild. But I do think that there's this whole notion of like, as long as you can procreate, like as a woman, you have some value, right? There's like a value tied to it, which is crazy, but it's real. But it's a real thing that, maybe from generations and generations past, like it's in there. It's in somehow some like seed in your mind.
And it's something that we put on ourselves, right? It's pressure. Like you said, it was an idea that you had imposed on yourself. The same thing with us. I think we put this heavy weight on feeling like, and I remember I always talk about when we were pregnant, we had, no, we were pregnant,
We were pregnant with a child.
No, but we're very blessed with very healthy pregnancies where we feel beautiful. Like I had never felt more glowing blue, like my
Yeah.
hair, my breasts, my belly. It was like I was floating, like I was walking around like with this light around me, right? Because there was definitely, you're right. I think there's like this hormonal, genetically DNA something wired in our brain where we know we're creating lives. So we get this essence of. I mean, some women go through a different experience. Having said that, but I think for a lot of women, we feel like this power. So the idea of losing that power in whatever that may look like in any way, I think it does take an emotional toll on us, accepting that reality.
And to me, it was even crazier because I didn't want kids to begin with. So why am I so stressed at the fact that I'm not going to be able to have any more? I was like, what is happening? But I loved being pregnant. And I know not everyone loves being pregnant, but
Yeah.
I loved
Great. We're
being
three
pregnant.
of
So
the
like,
I know.
the people that,
The
that people
weirdos.
hate. Yeah, like now there's three of us. Like
yeah.
I was like, when I was pregnant, I was also so like, I was like, oh, this is great. But I didn't feel the same vibe that you had. I felt more of like a cutesy, like I'm so pretty and like it was like much more girly vibe, like an idiot. But like that was my.
I was like, hello, I'm a goddess.
Yeah, she's like, I'm a sexual goddess, and I was like, I'm wearing flowers in my hair.
So funny, if you see your pregnancy pictures, Karen's wearing like an overall, like with a little t-shirt inside. So cute in her like kitchen.
And she's like in lingerie. She's like,
No, no,
I love it.
I was thinking like, I
love
think it's
it.
like in a bikini, like not like an open thing. I don't know. With
there's
like a
lace.
hat.
There's
I don't
definitely
know.
some lace in your
There's-
pregnancy photos. Anyway, this was.
When did you feel
yeah.
comfortable? Like you said, besides I think it's an important component about helping other people by sharing your story, but it is a difficult, I think, door to open to say like, okay, this is my life, this is my personal struggles. Um, how did you make the decision? Like this is my calling, this is my purpose. I think it's important for us to like be transparent and be open and have a following that's interested in this as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I had Ozzy, I was working at BuzzFeed and they were doing a series with another mom and she was like very lovey-dovey about being a mom. And I was like, that's not my experience at all. Like what? I was like, can I do the opposite version? And they were like, let's try with one video and see what happens. And the first video we recorded was why I don't breastfeed my son, right? Because I felt very
That's the most
shamed.
BuzzFeed title ever. Like you just took me back to those headlines. 100%.
OG BuzzFeed.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I felt very judged, especially in Brooklyn with like, everyone is like,
crunchy
granola. Exactly. I would go to like breastfeeding support groups and I had to like pull out my pump and everyone would be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like,
You're
for what? Right? Like what? So anyway, we recorded that video and it went crazy viral, like just unbelievably, like so many people reached out. And there was a midwife who said, I teach in midwifery school and I use your video with my students to show what kind of support moms want. Because there was a line I remember that I said, no one ever told me that I could just stop. No one at any point seeing me cry in the pediatrician's office ever said, you can stop breastfeeding and just give them formula. No one. So seeing the impact that video had, not just on the place, but like the comments, just reading, I took the time and read every single comment and I was like, this is actually impacting people. Like, it's not just me doing therapy, like getting all of it out. This is on the other side, people are actually benefiting from this. And I think that was the moment that clicked, that I was like, I'm no expert. I am not going to pretend that I'm an expert. I'm just going to tell you what I'm going through and what helped me. And if that helps you, great. And if it doesn't, but it opens the door for you to question things with a doctor or a therapist or your spouse or whoever it is, then great, right? Like, I'm not pretending that I know it all. I know what works for me and I know
Yeah.
what helped me. So I think after seeing the impact that video had, I was like, this is kind of what I need to do. And sometimes I'm not comfortable sharing it, right? Like I didn't share about my hysterectomy up until the point when I was like a month away from getting it because of what I shared, because I was like, I felt shame. So it sometimes takes me time to process what I'm going through before I can share it and help others.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your story with us today. If you could invite everyone to follow you, you know, where they could find you and find your content.
Yeah, well, it was so nice to be here. I'm at Conz, C-O-N-Z, everywhere. So you can find me there on Instagram, Threads, everywhere. I'm very active in social media, so you can see a lot of the stuff that I do every day.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Conz. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.